Someone who has carried far too much for far too long finally sits down, on a bed, a bus seat, the bathroom floor. The location doesn't matter. The collapse does. They're not sitting because they're tired. They're sitting because something inside them quietly gives way, like a bridge forced to hold more weight than it was ever built for. And if you've ever lived through a moment like that, even once, you know it doesn't fall apart with noise. There is no dramatic crash. It simply folds inward, softly, silently, as if the heart itself whispers, "I can't hold all of this anymore." People who have endured too much recognize that moment instantly. In fact, the strangest part is that you rarely notice you've become that person at all, not until life places the truth right in front of you. Then someone asks, "Why are you so calm about things that should upset you?" And you don't know how to explain that it's not calmness. It's not peace. It's the numb quiet that forms when your mind has been stretched beyond its limits. It's the stillness that arrives when your emotions have run too many marathons without ever getting a break. Most people think resilience means strength. But for those who've been through too much, resilience feels less like power and more like a survival instinct, something you practice because life never gave you another option. And because of that, you carry a psychology that others can sense, even if they can't quite explain it. There's a certain gravity to you. A depth behind your eyes. A softness in the way you listen. A heaviness in the pause before you answer a simple question. You learn to fold your emotions into shapes small enough to tuck into the corners of your mind. You learn to keep moving even when your inner world feels like a storm no one sees. And the paradox is almost poetic. People who've been through too much often appear wise, calm, grounded, mature. They look like the people who figured life out. But if anyone could step into their inner world for even a moment, they would see the truth. This maturity wasn't earned, it was extracted. Not chosen, demanded. Not developed, forced by circumstances that came too early, too harshly, too repeatedly. Some people grow because they're nurtured. Others grow because life never offered them the version of childhood or youth that everyone else took for granted. And when you've carried more emotional weight than a human body was ever meant to hold, something changes in the architecture of your mind. Psychologists call it emotional overcompensation, the nervous system reshaping itself after too many overwhelmings. It doesn't adapt gracefully. It adapts desperately. Through hyperawareness. Through constant emotional bracing. Through anticipating the worst, even when nothing bad is coming. If you've ever wondered why you overthink every small detail, why you scan people's tone for the slightest shift, why you prepare for problems long before they exist, this is why. Your mind once learned that uncertainty was dangerous, so it built defenses you never consciously asked for. And even as you heal and grow, pieces of those defenses remain, like the old framework of a building hidden beneath its renovations. People who have gone through too much carry an invisible curriculum that others will never see. They know how to read silence like a language. How to sense tension before anyone else notices it. How to walk around conflict the way someone steps around shards of broken glass. They know how to calm others even when their own heart is trembling. How to shrink themselves in moments where attention feels unsafe. How to recover from disappointment quickly because life never gave them the luxury of falling apart. These responses are often mistaken for personality traits, but they're not. They're survival traits, automatic psychological scripts etched into the nervous system, often beginning early in life. Developmental psychology shows that when someone lives through prolonged stress, uncertainty, or emotional overload, the brain recalibrates. It becomes hyper-attuned to threat, reactive to subtle cues, aware of patterns most people never notice. People call it intuition, but for many, it's simply necessity disguised as insight. And beneath all of this lies a quiet tenderness. A gentleness shaped by first-hand experience with pain, not theory. A softness that only comes from surviving more than anyone will ever fully understand. And this is where something subtle begins to happen. The more you rely on yourself, the more invisible your struggles become. People see the calm you present, but not the storms you regulate. They see the strength, but not the moments you had no choice but to be strong. They see the independence, but not the history that shaped it. Because emotional independence rarely starts as a choice. It starts as a response. A response to unpredictability. A response to inconsistency. A response to realizing, too early, that not everyone knows how to show up. So you learn to show up for yourself. Every time. Without fail. You become the one who holds yourself together. In silence. In private. In the spaces no one else enters. And the world calls this discipline. They call it impressive. Admirable. Proof of strength. But you know better. You know it didn't begin as strength. It began as necessity. Because when your environment is unstable, you train your mind to be the stable one. When people are unpredictable, you train yourself to be the predictable one. When emotions around you are explosive, you learn to make yours quiet. And with time, this becomes your default. Not asking. Not leaning. Not depending. Not burdening. You become someone who handles everything internally. Not because you don't feel deeply, but because you feel too deeply to risk letting it spill. This is the kind of self-control no one notices. The kind made of restraint. Of suppression. Of emotional discipline shaped through repetition. Not desire. And it leaves you with a strange duality. You are gentle because life wasn't. And controlled because your world demanded it. Not because they wanted strength, but because strength became the only option. And over time, that necessity turns into identity. The world applauds what looks like resilience. But the inner world carries what feels like residue. The fatigue, the sensitivity, the quiet overwhelm that stays beneath the surface. This split becomes a kind of emotional architecture. A life built on duality. A self that is both steady and shaken. Both soft and guarded. Both expressive and hidden. People who have lived through too much understand contradictions the way others understand routines. They can be warm while feeling distant. Compassionate while feeling cautious. Connected while feeling exposed. Their depth isn't a poetic trait. It's a psychological adaptation. They don't avoid vulnerability because it makes them uncomfortable. They avoid it because it once came with consequences. Disappointment that arrived without warning. Misunderstandings that left them carrying emotional weight alone. Imbalances that made them feel responsible for someone else's storms. So they reveal themselves slowly. Not to play games. Not to test loyalty. But to protect the parts of them that were never protected before. They open in layers, thoughtful, deliberate, careful. Because safety was never guaranteed. And here's what most people never understand. Nothing about them is damaged. Nothing is a flaw. Every reaction has a history. Every caution has a reason. Every layer has a story. The mind adapts to survive, not to break. And when someone survives too many difficult chapters, their emotional world becomes textured, nuanced, meaningful in ways others cannot see. And yet, despite everything, there is a quiet beauty in them. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that lives in small gestures. They love in soft ways but with incredible depth. They notice kindnesses most people overlook. Because they know what it feels like when kindness is absent. They notice things other people overlook. The small shifts. The quiet moments. The tiny pauses that reveal more than words ever do. They cherish peace because they've lived inside storms. They value sincerity because they've seen what pretending does to a person. And perhaps their most striking trait is this. They keep going. Not because they feel strong, but because they've been broken before. And learned how to stand anyway. There's a kind of wisdom that grows only from surviving your own mind. There's a maturity that forms only when you've had to navigate emotions without guidance. There's a self-awareness that develops only when you've been forced to study your own internal landscape. People who have lived through too much carry all of this within them. Layers of unspoken chapters. Pages of experiences they never wanted to write, but had to live through. And beneath all the reflexes, all the coping, all the depth, there is still a quiet part of them that wishes life had been softer. Not perfect, just kinder. A life where growing up didn't feel like an emergency. A life where their nervous system didn't learn to brace for impact. A life where strength didn't become their default identity. But even without that gentler version of life, they keep going. They show up. They grow wiser in ways that don't match their age. They become the kind of person who turns pain into depth, experiences into perspective, emotion into meaning. People who have gone through too much don't just survive their past. They interpret it. They analyze it. They reflect on it until it teaches them something. And without even realizing it, they become a source of light for others. The person people go to for clarity. For honesty. For a moment of calm. The person who listens without judgment. Because they know what it feels like to hold something you don't have the words for. They know what it feels like to hold emotions that don't have language yet. To carry feelings that sit in the chest like unfinished sentences. To wish someone could understand without asking you to unpack every memory behind it. And this is where their psychology shifts from being a product of their past to something quietly powerful. A gift they bring into the world. There comes a moment, soft and nearly invisible, when someone who has gone through too much begins to notice that they move through life differently than others. It doesn't reveal itself all at once. It arrives slowly, in the tiny comparisons you never mean to make. You realize that the things that make other people unravel barely ripple through you. You realize that the things that fill others with excitement barely echo inside your chest. You realize your mind is always scanning ahead, anticipating possibilities, preparing for outcomes, bracing for emotional shifts before they even form. And in the beginning, you mistake this for strangeness, as if something about you is offbeat. But eventually, you learn that this difference is simply the imprint of everything you've carried. A psychological residue left by years of navigating the world one careful step at a time. People who have lived through too much form a relationship with reality that is both intimate and distant. On one side, you feel deeply, sometimes too deeply. On the other, you've learned how to detach when those feelings threaten to overwhelm you. This ability to feel and disconnect at the same time isn't taught. It's engineered by the psyche. A structure built out of necessity. A balance between emotional intensity and emotional protection. Psychologists sometimes call it emotional duality. The capacity to offer empathy while hiding vulnerability. To appear steady while weathering internal storms. To function gracefully while carrying weight that others never see. And that duality affects how you move through the world in ways you rarely recognize. You become someone who hesitates before happiness. They become someone who analyzes comfort before trusting it. Someone who quietly wonders, is this safe? Is this real? Even when life feels gentle, even when nothing is wrong. Not because they're negative, but because their mind remembers too clearly. That good moments once carried shadows behind them. And even when life finally becomes kinder, even when circumstances shift for the better, the nervous system doesn't update that easily. It still braces for impact. It still prepares for the fall. Even when the ground is steady beneath their feet. This is why relationships can feel complicated for them. Not because they don't care, but because they care with a depth that terrifies them. They feel the possibility of loss long before loss ever arrives. They imagine endings before beginnings have time to settle. They apologize too quickly. They forgive too easily. They silence their own needs because asking feels like a burden. They listen more than they speak. They give more than they receive. And when someone finally asks, "What do you need?" they freeze. Not out of avoidance, but because they never learned how to think about their needs without feeling guilty for having them. People who have lived through too much develop a unique shape of love. Steady, intense, quietly loyal. Yet cautious. They don't love loudly. And they don't love recklessly. But once they choose someone, they love with a sincerity that feels almost old-fashioned. They notice the details. They hear the shift in someone's voice. They sense emotional wounds before they're spoken aloud. They show up in ways most people overlook. But sincerity comes with its own cost. They are easily wounded. Not by cruelty, but by carelessness. Not by hatred, but by inconsistency. Because inconsistency feels like the beginning of abandonment. And abandonment, even the subtle, unintentional kind, activates memories the body never fully put down. This is the part most people misunderstand. When someone who has gone through too much reacts strongly to something small, it's rarely the present moment they're responding to. It's the echo. The resonance of every time they once felt unsafe, unheard, or unseen. Their body is responding to patterns, even when the present is harmless. Their emotions shift in ways even they cannot fully explain. Shaped by associations that were formed long before they had the language to understand them. But instead of trying to explain this, they stay quiet. They hide their triggers. They mask their anxiety. They smile through discomfort. They keep the peace even when their own heart feels unsteady. Because they fear being misunderstood. They fear being dismissed as too sensitive, too emotional, too much. So they learn to keep their storms private. But here's the irony. These same people, the ones carrying silent earthquakes inside them, are often the emotional anchors for everyone around them. They provide clarity. They offer perspective. They give meaning to moments others can't make sense of. Friends bring them their deepest fears, because they know these individuals will hold those emotions with gentleness, with compassion, with no judgment at all. They understand, not because they read it somewhere, but because life forced them to become emotionally fluent long before they were ready. And that emotional fluency becomes a kind of vision. They can see through masks. They can feel when someone is pretending. They can sense tension in a conversation that everyone else thinks is fine. They can hear the unspoken meaning behind an "I'm fine." Their intuition becomes a finely tuned instrument that detects the tiniest emotional shifts. And this is both a gift and a burden. A gift, because it lets them connect with others in ways that feel rare. A burden, because it makes them feel responsible for emotions that never belonged to them. They absorb too much. They internalize too much. They become healers without ever choosing the role. And healers, if they're not careful, grow tired in silence. Their exhaustion doesn't erupt. It withdraws. It shows up quietly, almost invisibly. Not in breakdowns, but in subtle disappearances. Someone who has gone through too much won't say, "I'm overwhelmed." Instead, their messages grow shorter. Their laughter becomes softer. Their presence becomes lighter, as if they're trying to gently fade from the room, without making anyone worry. And when someone asks if they're okay, they smile and say, "I'm good." Not because everything is fine, but because they don't know how to explain the storm happening inside them. They don't want to feel like a burden. They don't want their emotions to be misunderstood. They don't want to reopen wounds by turning them into words. So they carry everything quietly. But people like this have another side, a strength most never notice. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that survives silently. The kind that keeps going even when exhausted. The kind that rises again even when life gives no reason to. The kind shaped by nights they never talked about. They've lived through too many emotional winters to fear the cold. They've walked through storms without anyone to shield them. They've rebuilt parts of themselves that no one ever saw break. And from all of that, they develop something rare. A quiet resilience. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind that looks heroic. But the ordinary, everyday resilience to keep trying. To keep trusting. To keep loving even when it terrifies them. Because deep down, people who have hurt the most are still human. They still want connection. They still crave gentleness. They still dream of a life where they don't have to be strong every single day. And what keeps them moving isn't loud hope. It's a small, steady, persistent hope that refuses to die. But hope isn't the only thing shaping them. What shapes them even more is how deeply they reflect. They don't just suffer pain, they learn from it. They analyze it. They search for meaning inside it. They turn heartbreak into clarity, confusion into understanding, loss into perspective. And that gives them a worldview that is both delicate and powerful. Delicate because it comes from real wounds. Powerful because it holds real wisdom. Wisdom that makes them patient. Wisdom that makes them empathetic. Wisdom that allows them to see layers in people others never notice. They understand that everyone carries something. Everyone is more complicated than they appear. Everyone has a story. And because of that, they forgive more easily. Not out of weakness, but out of understanding. They understand that people react from their own wounds. That hurt people sometimes hurt others. That healing isn't a straight line. That boundaries protect you, but compassion keeps you human. But there's one more part of their psychology that most people never see. They carry invisible grief. Not always the grief of losing someone, but the grief of losing versions of themselves. The version who trusted easily. The version who moved through life without fear. The version who believed things would work out without overthinking. The version who felt light instead of cautious. This grief doesn't break them, but it changes them. It makes them quieter, more intentional, more reflective, more aware of the moments that actually matter. A peaceful morning, a genuine conversation, a soft touch, a presence that feels safe. These things feel sacred to them because they've lived through chapters where nothing felt safe. And still, they keep growing. Slowly, quietly, consistently, in ways most people never notice. They learn boundaries. They learn self-worth. They learn emotional regulation. They learn the difference between instinct and trauma. They learn to open their heart again, not recklessly, but courageously. Because people who have been through too much are not defined by what hurt them. They are defined by what they chose to become afterward. They carry scars, but they also carry wisdom. They carry pain, but they also carry compassion. They carry memories, but they also carry hope. And the more they understand their psychology, the more they realize something freeing. They're not fragile. They're not weak. They're not broken. They are adaptive. They are introspective. They are emotionally rich in a world that often prefers simplicity. They are sensitive in a world that rewards numbness. They are thoughtful in a world addicted to impulsivity. Their mind isn't a battlefield. It's a testament to everything they survived, to everything they learned, to the depth that grows inside a person when life refuses to be gentle. And maybe the most beautiful truth is this: anyone who has gone through too much carries the potential to become a lighthouse. Not because they are perfect, but because they have walked through darkness and learned how to navigate it. Not because they always shine, but because they remember how terrifying it felt to be lost with no light at all. And that memory makes their presence feel like guidance. They become the kind of person who offers warmth without expecting anything. The kind of person who turns pain into perspective, and perspective into quiet wisdom. They are the ones who learn to live deeply, to love slowly but wholeheartedly, to trust carefully but meaningfully, to rebuild themselves until their inner world becomes a place that finally feels safe to rest in. And if you are one of those people, if you've lived through too much, felt too deeply, carried more than anyone knows, then you need to hear this. Nothing you became was accidental. None of it was weakness. It was adaptation. It was emotional intelligence. It was evolution. And now, even if you can't fully see it yet, you are capable of creating a future far softer than your past. A future where you break old cycles, where you build new emotional habits, where you choose softness without fear, where you choose love without losing yourself, where strength is no longer a survival mechanism, but a peaceful expression of who you're becoming. You didn't just go through too much. You grew through it. And that growth is your quiet power. This is your lighthouse moment.